Hey guys, we are at the end of our writing unit for argumentative writing. So today it's all about signing it, sealing it, delivering it, and putting on our finishing touches. It's really like this guy right here says, Stevie Wonder. It's like the song is, signed, sealed, and delivered. I'm yours. Let's get started so we can put this thing to bed. One of the first things you're going to need to do to finish your essay is you're going to have to include a conclusion. Now, a conclusion is something you've been working on quite a bit in this class over the past year. You've done them in literary essays, you've done them in informative essays, so you are familiar with a conclusion. Your conclusion must include the following three elements. You have to restate your claim or your thesis. Use a transition word to let us know that you are ending your paper or ending your letter. You can use something like in conclusion or therefore. You can also search online into Google to look for other types of transition words that are going to be good for a closing. You want to go back through your paper and you want to sum up the reasons and your evidence for why you chose that argument. This time you're going to use some different words. You want to paraphrase what you said so you're not just simply repeating the same thing you already stated earlier on. And then the last thing is you want to add a final thought. What is your final thought about the side that you chose? End with something powerful. End with something meaningful. I've had people come up to me already and ask, hey, can I include a quote at the end? That would be fine. If there's a final thought that you have that sums up what you've been feeling throughout this paper about your position, go ahead and include it. But this is your last chance to add in a little bit something from you. Now, one of the most important elements that you're going to add into your argumentative piece is what we call citations, or citing the sources that you've been using. In the beginning of this unit, I told you to keep track of the sources that you were using, websites that you were using, articles that you were using, or videos. In the beginning of this unit, when we were beginning to research, I told you that you had to keep track of all the sources that you were using. If you were using a website, a video, an article, newspaper article, magazine article, whatever information you were using, you had to keep track of those sources because citing your information was going to be a big part of this unit. And citing, while it may not seem important to you, it's extremely important because what you're doing is you are taking someone else's property, and if you don't give them credit for it, you are stealing it from them. And you never realize how important citing a source is until someone steals something from you. So it's really important that any information that you used, you have to give credit back to the person who originally came up with it. The video below is going to play for you, and this is going to be a short 3-minute video that's going to talk about the basics of in-text citations. You are going to be citing your sources within your letter. So with that being said, keep a close eye on this video, watch it carefully, take some good notes on some pencil and paper, it wouldn't hurt, so that way you can make some really good in-text citations in your letter.
The following is a brief tutorial that covers the basics about in-text citations, including why they're used, how they're used, and when they're used. But first, it's important to know why we use in-text citations. It's simple. In-text citations give the reader, your audience, a trail to follow to find where you found the information you're borrowing. So let's go ahead and follow the trail. This is a paraphrase from a paper I'm working on, and this is the in-text citation for it. If the readers wanted more information from the source I just used in my paper, the information in the in-text citation gives them enough information to get them to the source listed in the Works Cited page. It includes the author's last name, the page number, with a period after the parentheses. This citation takes us to the source's information on the Works Cited page. And here it is. Now we know exactly where to find the source, and because the in-text citation also gives us the page number, we know precisely where that information was found. So let's look at the path of our trail again. The in-text citation leads us to the Works Cited page. The Works Cited page then leads us to the exact location of the source. Pretty simple, right? But what if my source doesn't have an author? Easy, you just give the information that allows the reader to follow the trail to the Works Cited page. Like here's an article that doesn't have an author, and this is what it looks like. You'll notice I've shortened the title down from Ownership of Green Homes Expected to Increase Rapidly. I've shortened it enough where it still makes sense and will get the reader to the Works Cited page, but now it doesn't take up too much room. So what if there isn't a page number, like on a website? Again, you just give the information that allows the reader to follow the trail to the Works Cited page. Like here on my Works Cited, there's a website that doesn't list any page numbers. So this is what it looks like with no page numbers. It's just the name of the author or the website, whichever is used to list it alphabetically on the Works Cited page. And what if I use a signal phrase with the author's name to introduce the text I'm borrowing? Easy, you just provide the rest of the information needed in the parenthetical citation. Like here, according to Daniel McGinn is my signal phrase, and since I've already provided the author's name, I don't need to include it in the citation. Like here, I've only included the page number. And here's a free tip about signal phrases. The first time you refer to an author, use his or her first and last name. Anytime after that, just use the last name. So how do in-text citations work when I'm using a direct quotation? Well, all the same rules apply, but you'll also want to add quotation marks. For example, you'll notice that the quotation marks are used to enclose the borrowed words, and the period goes after the parentheses. So how do you know when you need to use in-text citations? Use in-text citations when you summarize, paraphrase, or directly quote someone else. Basically, anytime you borrow someone else's words or ideas, you need to cite it. So we've covered where, how, when, and why to use in-text citations. Good luck on your projects!
Okay, I can already see some of your heads spinning because you guys probably have never done a whole lot of citing before, and that video goes by pretty quickly. That is going to be a great video to go back and refer to if you need to remember how to format it. But let me go through it with you very quickly because you're not going to do the final page. You're only going to do the in-text citing. You're not going to do that final trail page. That's not going to be needed. That will be coming up next year in middle school. So, for example, if I was doing chocolate milk and I read something from an author, let's say her name was Terrenworth, right? And on the first page, I found a piece of evidence that I put into my essay. And she said that chocolate milk is a great post-workout drink, and she gave me several reasons. At the end of it, what I would do is I would go ahead and cite her by giving her credit by putting in the parentheses, her name, and the page number, and my period afterwards. I would do that after the evidence that I took from her. Another one is if the author is already written in my introduction. So let's say I'm using a quote from the author, and let's say her name, again, was Terrenworth. And I had said, Nancy Terrenworth said, and then I have quotes, and I put in what she had said. At the end of that quote, I would include just the page number, in parentheses, the number 1, and then I would end it with a period. So you can see here, according to Melissa Terrenworth, and then what she said, and I end it with the page number and the period. If I took a source from a video, I would simply, in parentheses, put in the name of the video. Again, right after the evidence that I had taken. Pretty simple, right? Nothing to it. If I found a website or an article that didn't have an author, because that comes up a lot. A lot of you brought that up to me during your research. You are simply just going to put in the title of the article, and that can be shortened. So, for example, if the article was called Banning Flavored Milk, you would just give me the name of the article, put in parentheses. If it was a website, you can put in the website. That is completely okay. If there's a website with no article title, or you can put in the name of the author, or you can just put in the website. So it would be a good idea if you took a screenshot of this page so that way you have it. So when you're citing the evidence throughout your paper, you'll know which one you can go to. I want you to take a minute and I want you to review this on your own to remind you about conventions. Conventions are those little things that we often overlook in our letters. Now, here's a list of a ton of different conventions that you should be aware of in your letter. Some of these will apply to you, some of these will not. For example, we are not sending these in an envelope, so therefore addressing paper envelopes would not apply to you. So look at these things, and if there's anything that's relevant to your paper, please keep it in mind and check for it. If it's not, then overlook it. But it's a reminder that conventions are a standard that I'm going to be looking at. So do pay attention to it and don't overlook it as something that's not necessary. And one of the most important things you need to do is you need to look at your growth. Writing is very similar to working out. If you worked really hard for a while, it's nice to check yourself out to see if you're looking any better. The same thing comes with your writing. You worked really hard over the last several weeks on your writing. Take a minute and go back and look at your growth. Look at the stuff that you've turned in and look at how much you've accomplished. Also, if you find something you haven't done yet, ask others in your group if they've done it. And if they have, look at their work so you can get an image in your mind of what it looks like and how you can recreate it. On the next slide, I'm going to just show you the checklist again, but I encourage all of you to go back to Schoology, look in the argumentative folder, and look at the checklist that we have there of what it is that I'm going to be looking for in your writing. There are no secrets. And if you want to do well, it's all right there in front of you. I'm telling you exactly what I'm looking for. So here's the opinion writing checklist that I'm talking about. This is available to you in Schoology in the argumentative writing folder. Go through this and make sure that your paper includes all of these different elements because this is exactly what I'm looking for in your paper. If you're missing something, don't be afraid to turn to a teammate and look and ask them if they have that item. And if they do, check it out and then create that image in your mind so you know how to recreate it in your paper. Some of the things that are usually often overlooked in papers are the things like the conventions and the transition words and using figurative language. Those three things often I see missing from papers. You have all the information that you need. I've given you everything I'm going to use to assess you, and I've given you every possible mini lesson to make sure that you're successful. The rest is entirely up to you. You have today to continue to work on your paper because we are publishing it. Good job on your argumentative writing, and I really look forward to seeing your finished product.